Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. An interesting title has found me, and I have observed something that I think is worth mentioning. That it's not just the clouds that pass, but many events and experiences pass the sky of man's awareness. I was looking at the leaves of a tree. And for an instant, the wind was hitting all the leaves, and I didn't have my glasses on, so it was a bit blurry, but for a second, the wind was giving the illusion to the leaves, all the leaves of the tree, and the whole tree at the same time, as if it's intelligent. So what I mean by that was, I looked at the tree, the wind was moving all the leaves of the tree in such a way where it's as if a person from a distance is looking and you have no concept of what wind is, the leaf seems intelligent. So what I mean by that is an intelligent illusion, something that appears as if it's intelligent, it's displaying patterns of intelligence, but is not aware of its intelligence. For example, a robot doing human activities. It is intelligent. It appears intelligent, doing the same stuff as a human being is, but it is not aware. It is not aware that it's as if it's like inanimate. The movement of the inanimate can get confused with the animate. I just wanted to suggest this point that many times I've wondered about intelligence, I've wondered about even human intelligence, and the most chaotic idea was for me that it was inanimate at the end. So when I realized that there is a sort of edge to intelligence, that it suddenly dissolves into meaninglessness, it wasn't just per se about witnessing movement and thinking about intelligence. Intelligence has that deeper kind of acknowledgement of reality. Right now, I'm seeing all these trees, and it's less windier today. A few days ago, I came to the same spot to give a talk. It was so windy. It was as if like the viewers of the video were here to hear the wind, not me. So guys, in the chat section, I'm just going to get the talk rolling for a little bit, and after like 10-15 minutes, I'll engage the chat section. Dancing leaves and illusions of intelligence. That means that dance could be an illusion. All those people dancing. There's this story of these three friends. They go into nature and they're walking in this kind of forest, and one of them, there's like an opening in the trees, and one of them sees this giant flagpole, and he sees the flag, and let's say it's a white flag, and so one of the friends looks at the other friends and says, "Hey guys, it's the flag that's moving," And somebody else looks at it and says, "No, it's the wind that's moving." And both the first two friends get caught in this battle of, "No, the wind is moving." The one of them is saying, "No, the winds can't move. It's the flag that's moving," you know. You know, the wind's movement is the wind's movement, the flag's movement is the flag's movement. And the third friend looks at it for a while, and after a while settles the dispute and says it's the mind that's moving. And so I'm kind of looking at a tree and I'm seeing wind hit it, and the tree appear to be intelligent. You know, it does. I mean, trees. I'm not talking about like the soul of trees. You know, can you imagine like somebody who's like, my tree the other day went out of body. You know, there is something about movement on its own that if it doesn't have a context, we consider it inanimate. That means I don't know how many people have tried this. Guys, like the intelligence of this world is so sophisticated that it's very hard to wonder if nature has a collective mind, even though it appears it does. It's as if, like, did you know trees? They are conscious of their environment to the degree that the vines of the tree, in some sense, they intelligently build around whatever kind of architecture there is. You know, if you there's some trees that the roots automatically find the way to like pipes to the house to the whole house's pipes or something, you know. And so life is intelligent when it moves and how aware it is of its movement. We can say a lot of things move. A dry leaf moves, a human being moves. But what is the factor that considers the intelligence? And I think we can say intelligence is when something moves itself and is conscious of the result. It's dynamic. Intelligence, it's an awareness to dynamism. It's not just like that. Like how can I say it? If you like when I was a kid, um, my grandmother had this cottage in Iran, 2 hours away from Tehran, more than 2 hours, like 4 hours drive, and it was this place called Damavand. I'll show people the mountain. It was this place called Damavand, and we would go there. And I remember it was me, my twin brother, my younger cousins, and what we would do is we didn't have much to do, and this was like pre-video games. It wasn't pre-video games, but it was as if like outdoor activities were still more fun than video games or whatever. So and so what happened is what we would do is we would all find a leaf, and there was this canal, this very narrow canal, where water from it went to around the garden, and eventually it went to this pool. And I remember we would each throw our leaves into the water, and the water would make the leaves race against each other, and then we would run after the leaves. So in my childhood, guys, I was running after leaves. Oh, guys, sorry, this was on mute and I was just talking. Tragic. I was just simply saying, probably nobody heard it, but I was saying like in my childhood, there was this place called Damovan where I would go and my brother, my cousins, when I was really young, we would go, and this was pre-video games, and we would throw these leaves in this water canal, and that was, I don't know, stretching from the swimming pool of the cottage to, I don't know, deep into the center of the garden or somewhere. And so we would go some point to this kind of small canal, and me, my brother, and my cousins, we each would find a leaf or something, and we would throw it into the water. We would throw it into the water, and the thing would move. The river was strangely giving the intelligence to the leaf. And sometimes when I look at myself, I mean, physically, the more secular, the more of a secular lens I look at life through, I'm just matter moving by some sort of energy. Do you see? That means even when I've wondered about the design of my free will, after some point, the first step of any movement seems spontaneous. So it's kind of saying that life, or the consciousness, is like a river. It's irrelevant to what is thrown in the river to move. And it's as if our incarnations are like the moment the leaf enters the river and moves by the river, and then eventually it steps out. So I feel consciousness is this ever-flowing river, you know, and in some sense we open our eyes in it. I feel our intelligence is not from our brains. I feel the signal is like a river we're in. Okay, so now I'm gonna look at the chat section and see what people are saying. All right, 9 people listening. Impressive, guys. I'm impressed. So what do we have here? John Free says, "Hey, Mr. Within, my life is a roller coaster. Would you say everyone comes out of the valley to be on top of the hill? I have extremely steep hills on my ride. Let me tell you, everybody is a pilot. You navigate. And based on your decisions and discretion and alertness before you act, you can pilot. So, and sometimes it's a blessing. Some people think that when they do something and their karma happens quickly, it's a bad thing. Do you know? But I'm telling you, it's not a bad thing. Those people who your karma happens really quickly, let's say you push someone and instantly out of nowhere you get pushed, that any person whose karma gets happens very instantaneously, the soul of the world is a friend of yours. Let me tell you, because so many people open their eyes and they live their life as this subject-oriented object which doesn't even believe it's a subject. It's like a subject is moving us, but we don't even believe we are the subject. Oh man, this life is so hilarious. It's like here, but we don't believe in free will. We think free will is an illusion, but we're all here living. How poetic. John, I would say that the most crucial thing to realize is that nature has a voice, and its voice is not in language, its voice is in events. And if you are a wise enough mystic to realize that the world is speaking to you through incidents that happen and you go through, you will feel your whole childhood the universe has been communicating to you. That means that's why I was, somebody was asking me, what is, I think it was the other day, somebody asked me, like, how do you become a great communicator? And I don't use the term great communicator, I use the term advanced communicator. And I find the person becomes an advanced communicator when they notice that they are simultaneous as they're being an individual person, they're being the communication of a cosmic activity. That means imagine extraterrestrials land in the future and we're like, imagine we've shaken hands and they're peaceful or whatever and they're chill aliens, you know. And so we're like, so what do we call you guys, you know? We tell the aliens, and the aliens are like, call us your siblings of energy. And we see that if we can speak the language of energy, which holds within a geometrical alphabet, I think when we find that geometrical alphabet, our communication is going to become synonymous with telekinesis. I can't even pronounce it. I am saying right now, the world moves. This movement animates a sub-movement behind our eyes, and that sub-movement causes us to respond to the initial movement. There's something bizarre about this world, that its continuity is not meaningful. That means don't expect life to have meaning only in one way. You know, it's like someone speaking one language, and then they thinking that one language is enough to understand everybody speaking every other language. No, there's many ways that life moves, but the challenge has been that first life was moving unconsciously as a world, then it moved unconsciously as a self, then it moved consciously as a self, and now we are moving to the era of the conscious world, where you are, I think most people this is the case, that you're gonna become a watcher of every movement ever in your moment. That watcher is the intelligence. I'm telling you, it's a living experiential thing, and we've been trying to paint the face of truth only to realize it's faceless. Let me tell you what tends to happen, at least in my experience, in when the mystical urge, the mystical urge is satisfied. Honestly, it's patience. Patience is transcendence. There's something about this life that you cannot force its dimensions to open. You know, only if you listen to, as Buddha would say, the silent sermon. Buddha has the story where, let me find the guy's name. This was known as Buddha's silent sermon, the flower sermon. The flower sermon is a story of the origin of Zen Buddhism, in which Sakyamuni Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, transmits direct prana, wisdom, to the disciple Mahakasyapa. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not that it's direct wisdom. It's that the Buddha held a flower in his hand, and he sat somewhere, and a bunch of his disciples sat in front of him, and Buddha's just staring at this flower, smiling, right? And then there's this old man who, out of all the disciples, he was considered to have heard the sermon, and I think his name is Mahakasyapa, something like that. Oh, here's the thing. One day the Buddha silently held up a flower before the assembled throng of his disciples. This was the famous flower sermon. Formally speaking, much the same thing happened in Ulysses when a mown ear of grain was silently shown. Even our interpretation of this symbol is erroneous. The fact remains that a mown ear was shown in the course of the mysteries, and that this kind of wordless sermon was the sole form of instruction in Ulysses, which we may assume with certainty. Okay, so Carl Jung is commenting on this, on the Eleusinian mysteries. I think that's probably Eleusinian mysteries, or more of an alchemical route. But pretty much, guys. Oh no, it's the Greek. Yeah. The Eleusinian Mysteries were initiations held every year for the cult of Demeter and Persephone, based at Elu, oh God, Eleusis. So, guys, anyways, what is this? This means the Buddha took a flower. He silently stared at it. A bunch of his disciples stared at it. He's like, Buddha, what is this sermon? We can't hear this sermon. Buddha was like, I'm giving a sermon. And then there was this one man, this old man, who suddenly saw. He saw the hidden context. He saw the hidden context. And he saw that Buddha is just this guy holding a flower in his hand, and a bunch of people are sitting, and all those people are trying to meditate, trying to be some sort of sophisticated success of their inner realms, not realizing that it is the gates of paradise are simpler than you think. You know, I find it interesting, guys. I was looking at the chat section. You know, we really put a lot of effort to be effortless. But I think the only resolution is also like similar to some people saying Wu Wei, as a concept literally means in exertion, in action, or effortless action. Yeah, the Tao Te Ching was pretty much that. It was that there is wisdom in silence, a wisdom of the inner voice. I don't know really who can, like sometimes when I speak, I tend to hear myself. I tend to hear other things too, like the wind, the various things. Also, I have headphones on, so I hear the music too. The mystery of the inner realm surpasses just inanimate movement. It's not enough just for us to see something move. We have to see it move in accordance to other things. So the mind, when it looks at intelligence, is literally comparing itself. So our intelligence is comparative. Now, if we go to our earliest memory, there is no earlier memory to compare. So that means at any process where the creature is comparing one concept and context, one self and world to another self and world, then there comes freedom both for the self and world. There was a time I thought that the self was singular and the world was multidimensional. Then I realized the self is multidimensional, and that's why the world can be multidimensional. And then, even from that framework, I moved on, and it was as if it was just at the end of all tests and results, it's just unknown. It's unknown. And that's the thing. Will it ever be known? Are there mysteries on this earth that will remain mysteries or have to remain mysteries for us to at least feel like the truth? You know. Okay. The wind holds a concert. All the leaves dance. The leaf realizes that during its vitality it is connected to the tree of life. I think very few beings realize that existence is access to existence. That when you are an existential being, there are authorizations of a fractal nature. I called this in one of my books the web of Enos. the web of Enos was that your consciousness is multi-local only when it discovers it was non-local to the belief that it was only in one location. It is kind of like Wolverine realizing there's metal stuff in his knuckles, like metal, metalware in his knuckles. So it's that situation where I am constantly wondering: is the human being just a bunch of atoms? Is the human being just a bunch of atoms? Is the human being just a bunch of atoms? And various moments, my mind evokes something superior to just I don't know what's called atom, the atomos, the secrets of the atomos. For me, it's life is not about just dividing and conquering. And there was something that the great general looked up to. The great general did not look up to people. The general looked up to moments. And many times, the only way I've been able to get through certain things in life was when me getting through it was way more real to me than me not getting through it. And so what does that mean? That means intelligence is a potential that only if you trust you can access. You don't know, guys, sometimes it's like I've had this sort of peculiar attention to nature that I could tell you I've gone to the edge of madness. There's this quote that Rumi has. He says, I have lived on the edge of insanity, on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. It opens. The door opens. I have been knocking from the inside. The roar of the ever-present mind will be heard. Intelligence will complete its work. And the meaning of intelligence is it has value in two angles. Like right now when I'm giving this talk, it has a value to my personal view on life, to me. And then it also has a value to the impersonal, which is the mystery. Right now, I have no idea how people are hearing what I'm saying. But I have access to how I am hearing what I'm saying. You see that? So it's as if like the intelligence of life is strangely multidimensional, that two different people can be used in the same moment and they could have nothing to do. Their meanings and the way their eyes move could have nothing to do with one another. There is something about mastery. I think those human beings who literally unexpected things happen to them, you are in like a private lesson with the universe. The universe has become your tutor. Any person who has intense karma, just watch. Just watch. That's the only thing you can do sometimes. Sometimes I've been overwhelmed by forces beyond my inner realms. What does that mean? That means I've been overwhelmed both by my inner realms and by my outer realms. I've been overwhelmed by my outer realms when, for example, physical confrontation, intensity, messed up situation, I got out of it somehow. Like that was the overwhelmment of the outer realms. But the overwhelmment of the inner realms was handling the aftermath emotion to the recognition that there is a field moving everything. I've had moments where there was no me, there was no you, there was no other, there was no self. It was as if for a moment my mind stepped out of this room of endlessly thinking it has to be a self in a world and a world for a self. And then it was like there was a silence. I don't know what it is, but there are moments in this life where I feel they are glitch in the systems of the simulation of meaning we have been conditioned into. Suddenly the meaningless reveals its face. I've had moments where the unknown shows itself. And the moments it shows itself, it's not a form. It's not a it's it the only way I've noticed it is literally like, okay, I'll tell you guys a method that I kind of got acquainted to my inner realms. I put something in my inner realms and I watched what happens. Just like our ancestors, they would put like a hunting machine or device and they would watch. And I don't want to say I hunted my inner realms. Usually people get haunted by their inner realms. Which is, trust me, meaningless from the beginning. Your energy. Energy can't die. It just changes. So at worst case scenario, you're experiencing change before you die. You know, so that's the resolution towards fear. It's change. But the inner realms, I sit still and watch. That means I would tell anybody who wants to walk the path of an advanced communicator, you have to get comfortable with silence, stillness, and meaninglessness. You have to get comfortable, and only if you're, I feel those people who life suddenly takes something from you, suddenly life pushes you, you know, or you're trying to climb something and life kicks you down. Those moments are, if you have the right attitude, if you are stoic enough to just endure, you will see the reward. I think failure and success are oscillations. I think literally any human being who sets their mind to do one thing. Imagine you wanted to become like you wanted to become, I don't know, a skilled fighter with a rake. Let's say you're a gardener who's lived the secret life of a master Shaolin uh, arts, like Shaolin monk. You know, what does that mean? That means you keep doing something, and the world keeps giving you different feedback. After a while, you see the world can't give the same answer. The world can't give the same answer because there's change. So mastery is an awareness of how you are not only growing with the dimensions of your perception, but how your familiarity is arising, not because you were a 2D being and you understood the two-dimensional reality, because you were a two-dimensional being. And in your two-dimensional practice, you tapped into a three-dimensional state of mind. And that's the thing about skill. It is about the angles that the emergence of the activity emerges through. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's four ways you can see this world. You can see it as empty. You can see it all as one phenomenon, singular. You can see it as all dualistic, a dance between the chaos and order, good and bad, light and darkness. Or you can see it move at a speed which is inconceivable. That means, have you noticed that we can only judge morality because we see, because we can see the issue, we can see the bad action. That's how we know it's bad, because we can see it. But imagine in the future, there are thieves that are moving at the speed of light. Imagine there was a thief moving at the speed of light. Then we wouldn't even see to judge. So when you are the only mind in the room, you are the mover of the moment. That's usually how I handle things. When I'm alone, I move the moment. When I'm with others, I watch how others move, and based on how far they are aware of how they're moving, I move in accordance to that. Life is dynamic. The true home is a dynamic state of being, not per se an ideological orientation. But it is important to establish things, and this is something that I noticed the world was forgetting. You know, there's this idea, they say in every generation, new technologies are born and technologies also die. What does that mean? That means, imagine in the future, people forget airplanes. That technology gets forgotten. Now, we'll be like, that's ridiculous. We're not going to forget planes that we use often. And I'll be like, okay, but now imagine how many technologies that we have forgotten. And stories really carry technology. The idea is intelligence. You'll get bored after a time with your own inefficiency, and you'll want to update it. The only way you can update is trusting a new self. I will tell you, I had a friend where, and I don't know, I've lived an interesting life. I feel I've been in the, my eyes have seen. Uh, how can I tell you? It's like if there was a revolving door, if there was a revolving door between, I don't know how to say it, guys, but I've this life has various elevations, and its elevations don't define the destination. They just define how you're getting to the destination. So if you as a person can find a more efficient strategy, wisdom would be the implementation of the efficient strategy. You know, this life, if you think about it, all human beings, because we're looking at it from a biological evolutionary standpoint, like, what does that mean? That means there was no concept of a home. There was no concept of a self. That means we were just creatures roaming. It's just a modern opportunity. I don't know, guys. I feel if it took us 4 billion years to be able to do something and we don't attempt it, it's our downfall. If it took us 4 billion years to have the you see, its evolution doesn't mean everybody's evolving the same. It just means the opportunities are evolving. As we go as we go forth in time, you got to think about, there was a time where homes were caves for the caveman. The caveman didn't build a home. It just took something as its home, to considered something as its home. But that was the uniqueness, the level where the person was like, what if I can handle? What if I have the ability? What if I have to, in my inner realms, be comfortable with where I want to go already? Don't glorify, guys. I'll tell you, when I was going to Toronto Film School, I was in the downtown area of Toronto, and um, I was friends with with this kid who, I can't tell you how many times I saw this kid was literally descending into homelessness. Imagine seeing, like, and he was a year older. He was a year ahead when I was attending, but I saw his descension into homelessness, and he wasn't homeless. He was choosing homelessness. You see? That means you as a human being can't feel like a human being until you respect your own choices. But the issue is, your choices could be a retaliation against the conditioning. There is this concept that too much freedom is chaos, because if there's only freedom, you have nothing to compare freedom to understand it. So I feel that I don't know, but back in the day, even peasants became kings. And it had nothing to do with the ideology. It had nothing to do, it just had to do with what you deep down feel you deserve. What you feel you deserve. That is where you end up in this life. Not what others feel you deserve, not what some invisibility in the clouds thinks you deserve, what you have believed before, what you have, the images to yourself before the self you see. That's where you end up. That suggests your constitution. Guys, if you feel you don't deserve a glass of water, you'll never get a cup and drink water. It's something that you feel. It's like, what is the stage after the concept of deserving something? It's second nature. It's already there. It's like, there's so many things the person has mastery over. Right now, everybody listening to me, you have mastery. You have mastery over moving any object. You have mastery in reevaluating yourself as a subject. You have mastery in navigating your attention. And believe it or not, each of your senses holds with itself its residing ability. That means if your hearing is stronger, you will be a great observer. If your expressive intent is stronger, you move before you listen. I think the extroversion has the strategy of first making things chaotic, then seeing what the order is. But I feel introversion has to be certain there is order before it can attempt something chaotic. So that's the thing. We have literally been made into statues. That's the thing. Ideological statues. People are like ice. Their ideological systems are like ice. And it just needs to melt down a little bit for them to see the balance between the known and the unknown. And I don't know why, but in the way I'm seeing it now, this explains why I wondered for a long time that why the unknown will become the greatest teaching. Where people will realize there's no teacher for the unknown. It's a remembrance. So, pursuit of purpose, guys. I'm gonna say this. Just I hope that people in the chat section, you kind of feel what I'm saying. There was a time where it was very easy for me to speak about things inefficiently. That means I would speak about myself. I'm too weak. I can't do it. I'm too unmotivated. I can't do it. And these words were the crime. where is an inner crime. For example, pursuit of purpose. Right now, you're saying I'm a cursed introvert. I know you might be playfully saying that, but I'm telling you, don't evoke the word. You have choice over language which sends an echo into the world. That means I remember there was a point where I'm like, wait a minute, you know, if I keep thinking negative, that's the image I'm giving the world. So right now, pursuit of purpose, everybody who's gonna look at you is gonna think you're a cursed introvert. That's why I'm saying language is it's hard, but if you just exert a little bit of consciousness, it's like Ludwig Wittgenstein or Hafez. Hafez says the words you speak become the house you live in. So the way you speak, you have to. It's like people say something, and they are something. You know. No, no, guys. I know there's nothing wrong with the word introvert. I'm just saying, in my experience of life, unnecessary words are unnecessary to evoke. That means people don't realize it, but think as if every concept is a ceremony. Every sentence you say, and it's like one view in life. Yeah, you know, these shamans, these Native Americans, Native Indians, let's say Native Americans, not Indians, Native Americans, or let's just call them natives. I don't know what the proper term is, because if I say Native Indian, they're not Indian. They thought people in Europe thought it was India. That's why they call them Native Indians, but they're not Indians. So I would say, anyways, in native wisdom, the whole moment, even before Buddha was born, Brahmanism was affluent, and it was a situation where life is not just a calculation, not just a painting to look at. It is a ceremony of every moment's effort. That means, I don't know, I keep saying this in this talks, but I don't know how many people hear it. I keep telling people, if you want to climb a mountain, start at the top. I don't know, guys. There was a moment where human beings did not walk this earth as creatures that they had their attention more on their weakness. Their strength would be the definer of their life. You know, children were raised into the world as if they were warriors on a battlefield that was eternal. That is the strength our eyes leads. That we do not fear change, we study it. It's like, what did the human being do when a meteor was about to hit Earth? You know, the human being studied the meteor and wrote an essay, and still. Guys, loneliness happens anytime you feel people can't see you. It doesn't matter. You could be in a crowd of. I've been in crowds and still felt lonely. I've been in alone and I felt not lonely. The opposite. I've had moments of loneliness where the word loneliness didn't exist. It was just the presence of a being present among all being, and the simplicity of that is its own bliss. You see, we are creatures of language. The language solidifies us, so we think we can't be anything after that, and it is a linguistic simulation. Language is a simulation we're in. These words are just beautiful sounds. People are like, yo, Mr. Within has a lot of confidence. He's calling his own talks beautiful sounds. It's you suffer in accordance to how much you keep life as a static image. If you don't realize it's a moving film with unknown variables endlessly being revealed to the end of time, really it's the evolution of intelligence. if we watch movement, then identify it, then identify with it, we are not the definition. We are not the definition. But it's weird. All of life, they would call it Leela, you know? Pursuit of Purpose says, Mr. Within, do you know anyone in your life whom you connect with and who understands you deeply? Um, I have this view, nobody can see things exactly like me, just like I can't see things like exactly like other people. Everybody has their own eyes, so there is one level of, there are dimensions to my being that I feel no human being has seen, and not even my own human identification has accessed. But of course, man, of course I'm, Persian. Yeah, but not. The issue is for me. There's a lot of everybody. I think understands. Usually, I can explain things that people understand me. But the issue is, it's not the same level of curiosity. That's the difference. That means it's like many. I think everyone can understand me. The issue is the value I see in the words I use. Not everybody has the same values. So, for example, I in around me and those people around me, I'm friends with people who you might not believe, but behind their eyes they feel they're eternal beings. And I'm friends with people who behind their eyes they feel they're nothing. They're not eternal beings. They're temporary beings. So you don't know how many people I've talked to in this life, and how much I've realized the world has been moving in ways that I have not been aware of. It's like anytime I hear anything, someone speak, it's literally me getting access to a new dimension. So I would say yes, because really the deeper part of me is not, I don't have a relationship as a person only. That means if something happens to my physical existence or my subjective experiential identification, I have a acquaintance with something behind these. So JH says, connect duality with non-duality. It could be similar. You see, guys, it's here's the question. Even if you think right now you are oneness, that what about that thought of oneness? How is the thought of oneness one with other thoughts? How can it? Guys, I will tell you, the most crucial moments in this lifetime where I feel I found the fearlessness of the eyes before I was born. I was at a gas station. I was at a gas station putting gas in my car, such a spiritual moment. And I was just looking at, gas stations have these signs where they put the gas price, and my attention was zoning out while my hand held the gas thing. It didn't have the click thing on it, the gas thing. So I was holding the gas and I was just zoning out into the distance behind the sign where the gas prices were. And then for a moment I was thinking about my life and I was like, wait a minute. I've been living my whole life under the firm assumption that I'm temporary. What if my mind is ancient, my body is modern? And there was a nanosecond, an instant moment there where I accessed a feeling of a sense of knowing that surpassed my vision. So I would say I experienced a moment in that gas station where I felt my eyes had never closed, but the body had endlessly changed. The eyes of the mind had never closed. The mind didn't have biological eyes. It's a presence. So those people who they listen to the presence of the moment in relation to a strategic ideological kind of future projection of themselves to direct them, I think that's the way to go. I feel the advanced communicator is no longer someone who is trying to be a picture on a wall. The advanced communicator is literally a clear antenna, or as in Tibetan Buddhism they would say, a polished mirror, a clear mirror. And when you find this clear mirror, a mirror with no smudges on it, you find a state of mind with no smudges on it, all the inner treasures are revealed. You know? So I experienced, guys, in that moment, a feeling of never endingness. There was this comedian, Chris D'Elia. He was saying this thing. He had this bit about where he was saying, like, why do they in religion, for example, say forever and ever? Why isn't forever just forever? You know, why is it forever and ever? You know? And that's the interesting thing. I think we have to treat our minds as holograms of the world, which the light is not the hologram. So I feel that we are like two chemicals interacting with one another. Both chemicals are altered. I think consciousness is a co-creation of two different dimensions. I think what it is dimensions are born separate, then they communicate. What does that mean? That means evolution is kind of like, I mean, a more secular interpretation of consciousness would be the imperfect perception on one's own activity. Right? That means we see white light, but white light, when it goes through a prism, it's the color spectrum. And what if the dimension, all the colors in the color spectrum, you know, they were in some sense dimensions that could communicate to one another. Imagine the red dimension and the blue dimension and the green dimension. Through all those three, in some sense, became the RGB dimension. You know? So what I'm saying by that is it's a communication of worlds. Right now we think only the creature is intelligent and the creature is in a non-intelligent world because we're like, yo, atoms don't have much of a personality. But I feel it's like a conditional multidimensionality. Right now I can see I'm healthy and I'm speaking, but I could see in the future, as I grow older and older and older, it is like slowly stepping out of the vehicle that I once helped make, that I co-created with the world. You know, it's like your life is an artwork, which at the end, after you finish painting, you move on to the next empty canvas. So I feel that to become aware of the empty canvas before any sort of movement or noise or any sort of animate, I don't know, rhythms of the brush, like that's the thing. I'm kind of looking at life and I'm like, how much of it is just it is something, and how much of it I am seeing it as something, you know. And this distinction between the two opens me up to a totally different landscape of engaging, because your explanation ability is left to how much you've seen something. So, for example, certain philosophers, the way I remember what they spoke about was because I had a question and I was wondering who had answered this question in history. And when I went and saw this philosopher had answered this question, I instantly remembered because it was as if that was the only other comrade in the battlefield of history that had chosen to look at that angle. And so I'm constantly waiting for the emergence of this global mind that will set into motion a sort of Colosseum digital community like Gladiator Arena. I feel what it is that we have literally 30 years before 2000, less than 30 years, but like before 30 years before 2050 to evolve language as far as we can, because only the excuse me, only the evolution of the language will suggest the user of consciousness walking in a different world to itself. So we either become conscious and move differently than the language, or as many scholars and continental philosophers have said, the language must evolve for the alphabet of the ideology to change. Do you see what I'm saying here, guys? We have to evolve our language as a species. And so one way is you either, like Jordan Peterson says poetically, I'll kind of make Jordan Peterson kind of in a bodhisattva light. Jordan Peterson, when he says, like, you gotta clean your room. Yeah. And he's Jordan Peterson is a person who, if you were asking him about how do you build an advanced civilization, he would say you got to start from the individual. But for example, when Slavoj Žižek was debating Jordan Peterson, he was saying no, you can't tell a person in North Korea just clean your room when the civilization is messed up. The environment is messed up, right? So it's like certain chess moves that the human being has to make certain moves, and then the world has to make certain moves. But the world doesn't have a mind that's personified like the human being, so we have to move. You know, we have to move the meaning of the world. That means after some point we can't just hover in our attributeless bliss. There's responsibility to design. With great human design, guys, 2050 will be a year where we have no choice, but for the first time ever, we will have no choice to pay more attention to technology, external technology, than inner technology, which is natural. For me, okay. Guys, I'm reading the chat section. People are exactly on to what I want to say. Yeah, some people say, like Being Human says, what separates you from the totality of things is the thought. D. Michael says it is only thought that gives the illusion of a continuity of a person, which is only a construct. In deep delta sleep, there's no thought nor person. Okay. So, guys, what does that mean? That means if we rely on language to for the full scope of our meaning, we fall short, because life is when one moves, here's the thing, it's not that time flies when you're having fun. It's that when you're having fun, you are concentrated into an activity, so your attention isn't on the same variable. You know, I there is something I gotta say about myself that I've noticed personally, that there is a sort of, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is like every human being, like you can't pay more attention to the order of things without also noticing the respective chaos to the intensity of that order, the respective reverse chaos. So what does that mean? That means whether you choose to go the path of chaos or the path of order, either way you will have to, it's two sides of a coin, you will get acquainted with the other side of the coin. So it literally means we have to find a new way of developing a language that is not dual. So this would be the challenge of the evolution of language, that it will not be a language based on duality, which I think an attempt would be to make geometrical shapes be able to map um, events. So imagine you in the future, there was this next level language, and you see, like, I don't know, a cube, like some geometrical pattern, okay? Some geometrical shape, linearized shapes, and you look at that geometrical shape, and that's not just a lovely, just a simple triangle or a simple square or a simple circle infused together. That is a history, a world. That means language is symbols that are, it's literally, we're linking the subject and the object together. Right now, I'm looking at this object in front of me, but I call it a chair. So, D. Michael, in the chat section, when you say look into beta, alpha, theta, delta, yeah, I'm conscious of it. I've looked at some papers on it. I haven't, I mean, recently I haven't, but there was a time I had really looked at what's going on in sleep. I ultimately concluded that as long as we're alive, some level of communication is occurring. That means if communication is expression, and if your body is expressing, even in sleep, you may think in deep sleep there's no personality, but the body we know is alive and breathing in the bed, right? So what does that mean? That means free will is to itself unconditional, to the other conditional. You know, Lisbeth, I'll tell you this. It's not per se that we need to make a new dictionary. We just need to expand the letters of the alphabet, which I feel is an honorable thing we can do. You know? I have this vision that if we are to survive the dawn of a technological age, we have to make the tree of knowledge resemble exactly the body. We need to kind of create an educational system where when the child learns medical sciences, it will learn every other science. That means the child would be able to look at its hands and imagine philosophy. The philosophy, all philosophy has been made into like the five fingers of man. You know, so when people see the five fingers, they can see these endless models to philosophy, for example. I don't know, guys. There's moments where I look at life and I'm like, how far can the telescope take me? And there are times in life where I'm like, how far can the faith take me? And I realized after some point, it's just costing things. It's just raw energy here, watching the world move and then identifying with it. We are freedom before we define freedom. If you only knew you were also the wind between the branches of your misery. This world is a program. We've literally opened our eyes in the stomach of the cosmos. There are processes occurring irrelevant to our free will's individualization. So either the free will has to relate itself to more of that which is, that as it is, or that which it wants. It's kind of like a writer doesn't write 24/7. There's moments of life where I feel the entrance is open. Life is intuitively welcoming you to go further. And then there's moments where you feel as if life is no longer welcoming you into that moment. Let us wonder about intelligent activity. Let us wonder about intelligent activity with a reference of time in space and without a reference of time in space. If intelligent activity has no time, it has no comparison ability, it has no reference. The birth of the first memory was the subjective evolution. Human beings are not just themselves. Right now, it's as if I am biological content. Do you know there is like I can't? It's like right now I'm being a biological being speaking to you, but the meaning, how the eyes paint the walls of their depth. The leaves move, and you can feel like, yo, these leaves of the tree are all dancing to the song of the wind. But you see it is lifeless. The more macrocosmic we look at things, the more we feel we're the small and the big, the more meaningless reality is. The more you feel you're the big and the small, the more meaningful reality is. Right? This is why you see sometimes a lot of successful people, they had a level of boldness at a certain phase of their life where they felt they were authorized to go further. And that's the important thing about honesty. Most people think honesty is for others. They like most people think they have to be honest because it's wrong, it's a sin to be dishonest. But I'm telling you, no. Honesty is for the sake of your own intelligence. It's like people saying, "Do you think you can run better when there's a box on your head or when the box isn't on your head?" So if you abide by how you feel you're present to thought or in thought or whatever, when your presence becomes your teacher, when your mind moves before your archetype, oh, I will be listening to your talks. Right now, the body is moving faster than the mind, so the mind has no way of escaping the definition of an objective reality. The body appears to be moving faster than the mind, but it's the other way. I think 90% of intelligence is observance, 10% is, let's say 5% is how you filter that. It's like, I don't know, just as a person, just for a moment, wonder how much phenomenology are you actually perceiving in the moment, and how much of that phenomenology appears to happen in the invisible room of imagination. It's incredible. It's as if we're living a life before we express the life. You know, kind of like Michelangelo said, I saw the angel in the stone and I set it free. This dude saw a chunk of rock and he's like, I see angels in this rock, you know? And he sculpted the angel, right? So similarly, we human beings, it seems our minds are seeing the angel, are seeing the future self, and we just are trying to sculpt it. And it doesn't matter with whatever, even if you want to communicate, you know, it's they say you must serve before you command. That means you have to become very comfortable with silence and stillness. Then you become your own authorization of speech because you realize it's an equal playground. Guys, it's a free for all. We're on a rock in the middle of nowhere, and just like it discovered fire, we discovered after some point we could ascribe symbols with sounds, so a sound became an object. So literally, when I say cup, it's not that the cup is the object, the subject, and even the sound are all the same thing in that moment. All right, guys, I'm going to read for you a few poems from this book I wrote called Rahmana. And, uh, anyways, I'm just going to read these poems. I wrote them in 2016. When Heaven Returns. That's the poem. These are like mystical hymns I wrote at some point. So, like, you guys want to know what I was thinking about in 2016? Now you can. The poem is called When Heaven Returns. How does the pond throw stones into itself? Let's ask man. He might know better. But the way I've written no here is N-O. He might know better. We are all the reflections of the divine in our own eyes. How does madness wear a jumpsuit? It is always up to you to dive into a new sky. For what is within you is always beyond you. So it's always up to you to dive into a new sky, folks. That's it. You got to look at life and be like, all right, it has unknown variables. I got to engage and see what these variables are. And in accordance to the feedback loop that emerges, just build a path and just kind of like, you know, pretty much if somebody's like, what's the purpose of life? And somebody was like, I don't know, man, but there's a lot of walking you got to do. Centennial Pride. So let me see, because I've Centennial. Let me see how I've written this. So guys, Centennial with a C, it's 100th, like, you know, century. We celebration of a century, okay? But this is Centennial Pride, and I don't know, I think when I wrote the title, I was thinking of sentience, somehow trying to connect the two words. Anyways, Centennial Pride. That's the next poem. Beyond sentiment, all are capable of absolute observance. Okay, sentiment. Beyond sentiment, all are capable of absolute observance. The world is not an ignorant shape. How does mystery climb the staircase of ambience? Do not be convinced by what meets the eye of the eye. There is no road when all existence walks within you. What is more consistent than a sun that doesn't want to set? If you've noticed ocean waves, what makes your breathing any different? Live in such a now that when the wind blows, change happens formlessly. All pride is an excuse to exist without the precious gems of the heart. What gives hope to the hopeless when hope must originate from you? How do free people free the people? Live in a clarity that never left the heart. Guys, treat this as a poetry tunnel. It's like a segment of the show. Voids of conscience. The free man can give nothing to everything. Are you free, or are you a man? Consciousness never lies to itself. Your origin cannot be a mistake. All leaders seek the leader within. When the storm comes to the edge of an untimely eclipse, billions of lions will roar through the same throat. When peace is no longer a stranger in the tavern, the heart finds no burdens. A burdenless heart works with the transparency of the ego. If God was a man, would he remember himself beyond mankind? Question mark. The voids of conscience are within us all. That means the awareness to your intuition and conscience is not shaped. Your attention, your awareness to the inner dialogue is not a shape. So we shouldn't fear being the eyes of emptiness, even though we are also being simultaneously the eyes of fullness. And this is the last poem I'm going to read for you. When God Speaks. This is from this poetry book called Rahmana. People can find it on Amazon if they like. When God Speaks. When God speaks, God listens back. All worlds stem out of the transparency of one creation. Can the Creator be understood through language? Who is so free that reality wipes its tears of bliss before its beginning? All life is one force within many forces. When God speaks, all of existence listens to itself. The oneness of reality is an absolute matrix. That means it's the truest simulation you will ever find. Because you're not a thought, Lorna. Lorna in the chat sections, guys. She says, why do we come here and can think, but need to do our best to not? Why do we have this ability then? Guys, I have never said you should not think. I have never used that words. That's the impression brushed off upon you by this whole New Age society that in some sense is pushing people towards inner freedom, but a denial. It's like, you know what it is? There's two ways. It's like somebody is showing you peace, but they're not showing you the road to it. And I don't know how to tell you. I don't know. I am, it's like, when I see fiction, I remember nonfiction. When I see nonfiction, I remember fiction. You know, guys, thanks for engaging the comment section. It's very thought-provoking. And perhaps that's the thing. Right now, the most smartest thing that the human being can do is observe the objective realms and, in some sense, have a retaliation strategy as a general of one's own free will. You have to learn to become a commander of your will. Yes, Lorna, I was just kind of poetically in the vibe, and I just saw your comment, so I just responded to it. I don't know what it is. I feel, for how long can you see a species not attempt its potential? I mean, after some point, it just gets on your nerve, and you start giving 10,000 talks. I don't know what it is. There was a time I even rationalized it to myself that my whole psychology towards the world was because I wanted to uh, protect something. And later on, I realized you can't protect anyone from their will. And it's only when you are aware of your will that you are willing to see something more. So I don't know what it is. It's as if we are just travelers. We are unknown travelers. I don't when I'm even right now, all the people in the chat section, like that's what it appears to me. It feels as if we are this planet is a bus stop. It's like a train booth. You know, it's like it's like we're waiting on Earth. I will attempt. With the rage against the dying of the light of the last breath, that there will happen a renaissance in communication. It's happening. We're on the verge. You know why? It's an emotional lift into it. It's as if there's going to happen an incredibly emotional event. I remember seeing, like, it was weird. Like I was like maybe like 15 or something, and I was seeing this scene from Lord of the Rings 2, and it was a very intense moment. There was a scene where Theoden, this king, I think it was in the yeah, I think it was the second movie, where this king has been fooled, has been deceived. This guy's been whispering in his ear bullshit. Like literally, that was the storyline. This Grima, I think was the name of the guy. Grima was whispering something in Theoden King's ear. He had deceived the king. And so Gandalf, like an updated version of like Gandalf 2.0, goes into the hall and he shouts something, does some next level like magic like thing, and King Theoden suddenly rises. And then King Theoden realizes when he was in his kind of confusion and in his decay, in his slumber, in his simulation, his son died or something. And there is a scene where Gandalf is looking at a king, and you gotta understand, back in the day, if you were a king and you didn't have a lineage to pass on, you failed. Literally, all the kings in history were like, "You're no king." You know what I mean? So it was like to be a king was you could totally see the intensity of losing the future. And Theoden King in that scene in Lord of the Rings 2 is just crying, looking at his as corpse of his son. I don't know if it's being burnt or whatever, or he's just looking at his son, and Gandalf is there, and Theoden, the actor is incredible. I don't know the name of the actor, but that's like that acting was incredible, right? And in that scene, Theoden King cries and says, "What father should bury their son?" And it's this chaotic moment of intensity of the unfairness of life, even to the king. Life can be unfair even for kings, guys. And it was very intense. I saw that scene, and honestly, I got emotional. Even now, I'm talking about it, I'm getting emotional because there was this moment where Gandalf sees this king, sees Theoden, who's internally collapsed his empire. So, guys, just to finish the scene, I'm becoming unnecessarily emotional, Anyways, in that scene, Gandalf sees Theoden, and Theoden is like, yo, this is messed up. Gandalf looks at Theoden and restores the honor of that king and says, don't worry about your son. His spirit will find his way to the halls of your forefathers. Like Gandalf is in some next level poetry, right? And Gandalf says, don't worry about what has happened. The past is past. That spirit will find its way. Now you keep marching. Do you know? And then you go see, like, as if there was way more wars that, like, in the third movie, you kind of see the destiny of Theoden King. It's incredible script writing. It's like that movie could have been given infinite Oscars, and I'd be like, yeah, it deserved it. So that was the thing, right? Gandalf restored a king that had believed his own illusion. Now, that whole king thing, it's not like everybody should be a king. The idea is that it's the value. It was a metaphor for the restoration of the able human being. There is no wrong direction, just like there is no wrong way to write a sentence. At some point, it's just the observance that gives you access to a landscape. If you have been sensitive to your inner realms, you will also have an inner landscape. So just like I see this object and I see that it's called a cup, you know, and then the cup, the word cup is a subject. So what does that mean? That means this object is inside a world. That means the subject of cup has to be inside a world. Do you see? So this is the way we're kind of somehow always conscious beyond language because the thought cannot think. It's only a relationship between the objective and subjective, which is it's an oscillation really. It's like we're bouncing between the two worlds. Guys, but I'll be honest, like the movie Gladiator, just to bring this in, I mean I've kind of reached the end of this talk, but like just to bring it in, I've kind of like the movie Gladiator, that scene where Maximus goes into heaven, and I was this kid with like I was raised in Iran, and it's a theocratical kind of state, so religion's an idea you are acquainted with early on, you know. And so it was like for the first time I was seeing somebody create heaven on a screen, and I'm like, am I looking at heaven on a screen? Mr. Within is just saying there are many ways you can look at an object, and there's many ways you can look at a subject. So then you'll realize you're not the subject or the object. It's like you're the awareness to the change. This doesn't mean this awareness can't move things. So I feel at first spirituality feels like you want to transcend the world. You want to get beyond things, but then you'll realize the beyond was where you were, where it began. Anyways, guys, I don't know. I just saw leaves move on a tree, and I thought I'd give a talk on it. But really, what it is it's I don't know. It's the inner realms and the outer realms, and it's as if there's a dance between the co-creation of the moment. Is certain things are in your will, certain things are beyond your will. The things that are beyond your will, certain range of them are known, certain range of them are unknown. The things that are in your will, in your control, they're known and unknown. Do you know that means a person could control something, but sometimes it's like in a long term, maybe the person will look back and see they didn't have an overall good control or whatever, right? So I don't know. Anyways, that's the end of the talk, guys. I'll open it up to Q&A if anybody has questions for like 10 minutes. So anybody has a question, type it and put MW in front of it, and I'll respond to it. I'll be available for 10 minutes. Blessings. Thanks for listening so far. Okay, guys. So interesting questions. Eyeballs says, Mr. Within, energy is infinite. Like reincarnation, our souls are given new vessels. Here's the thing. I'm saying before we treat that narrative as reality, let us first see it as a narrative and let us ask about our relationship with language as instead of the meaning of the word. You know what I mean? That means I would say that I'm a person who, in my own school of thought, like when you hear me speak, I'm speaking in a way where I'm saying like you're not a thought, you're not language. There's something more. But it's like it's this experiential presence that's just silently there watching ever since you every moment you become conscious. You know, so it's like I feel we are like an advanced technology. It's just that we have to use ourselves. Right, so I would say you can think of it if you want to look at energy. I mean, I'm just saying in a secular way, energy is in a scientific way it's explained as it's not created or destroyed, but it changes. This is why we have the words in science: potential energy becoming kinetic energy, right? So and you can kind of see this in psychology too, that there is a potential inner realm. Something's happening behind the eyes of the person, then the person suddenly decides, to do a backflip or something. So something happens, like it's literally like the inner realms are your potential energy, the outer realms are your kinetic energy, right? So it's like a transformation. So if you want to think about yourself as energy, as infinite, if you right now want to treat yourself as an eternal being, it's like uh, if you treat yourself as infinite, the meaning of life is only change. It can't be anything like that. But if you are a temporary being, that means the meaning of life can surpass the even the meaning. Its conditional meaning. So for me, a lot of people, for example, they fear the unknown. I used to fear the unknown. I remember we had this cottage. I was really young. I think I was like maybe 10. 10? I don't know. I was young, and there was this kind of like, I don't know how to say it. Okay, all right, guys, I'll skip this metaphor. I'm simply saying, like, if you think you are something that can't change, then you have nothing else left to look at other than the change. So it's kind of asking, what does an eternal being do when it gets bored? It's like a temporary existence, you know? Who knows? So I'm saying be conscious of the language, so you don't have this mouth-watering attitude towards constantly desiring a better image. It's like your mind generates images. It's whatever answer I give. Also, it's like the way I'm saying the answer and how it has meaning in my experience is going to be very different from how you hear it. But it's a good question. I feel if we're eternal, it doesn't make sense for us to think in a temporary way. If we are temporary, then eternity seems to be evolution's effort. No, we're trying to stay here as long as we can. So it's like we're indirectly trying to be eternal. That's kind of like evolution winking. You know. All right, let's see the next question. Mr. Within, you believe in reincarnation? I don't believe in language, but I do feel there is continuity. I feel what the Buddhist thought was reincarnation was actually an oscillation between a dimension where the person is perfect and a dimension between where the person is imperfect. What does that mean? That means there is no reincarnation. That means that moment between reincarnations, you're not an incarnate definable phenomena, you know. So, like, let's say even if you believe in reincarnation, what about that moment between the two lives? What about that moment? Who are you in that moment? It's like, who are you when you're in the middle of a portal? You're left. Imagine like you entered the portal sideways and you stopped in the middle of the portal. So the left part of your face was on one side of the portal, and the right side of your face, your right eye was on the other side of the portal. And technically, imagine like a Stargate portal or something. The portal is between two worlds, and you're in the middle of it. So that moment is like literally the metamorphosis of a caterpillar from being a creature in a certain condition of conception, dismantling. So it's like we wake up into a dream of a life form, and then we kind of we go back to sleep from this dream of life form, you know, which is a simultaneous awakening, because the cat in the cocoon, the cells of the caterpillar, they all die, they all die, and then as the last cell in some sense fades, the last cell of the caterpillar, the first cell of the butterfly emerges. So technically, the last cell of a caterpillar and the first cell of a butterfly are the same moment. So that's the moment between the portal. That's the moment where you are experiencing yourself as a creature in time and between time. And if you have an experience beyond time, then reincarnation in time doesn't make sense. So you step out of karma when poetically, the lords of time. You have acknowledged the lords of time properly. All right, let's go. Next question. D says, Mr. Within, I'm wondering if you could address the value and importance of just becoming aware of awareness itself. I'll tell you exactly. You know what the awareness of awareness is? It is space. So the importance of being space is when your attention is too identified with what's in the space, right? So I'll give you an example. It's like you're giving a talk, imagine, in public, and right behind you there's a professional beatbox crew, and you're talking about like something simple, but the beatboxing is endlessly having an influence. So being the importance of being aware of awareness is being aware that before the beatboxers made a sound, before the person spoke, there is an underlying silence. That if you refer to that before you speak, then you have this smooth flight of concentration in in whatever you do. So I would say it has a value, but there's two ways. Enlightenment can be a trap if it's making you escape your you not wanting to confront living as a physical being. So that's what I'm saying. Enlightenment is a trap if it's making you run away from it, something. But if it's making you stare something in the face, it's as if you suddenly feel fear and you're like, fear has dared look at me. So I would say its importance is personal, and if you can witness your inner realms and your outer realms simultaneously, in my books, you're technically most likely an advanced communicator and listening, letting the world move before your own uh, selfhood. Your ears are open to the guy in mind. That's its importance. Honk says dust on the road to eternity, a lot of it. Yeah. I'll add to your comment, Honk, stardust. Stardust on the road to eternity. It's like, man, what product do I have to buy to clean up stardust, guys? That's the question. What affordable product exists to clean stardust? Yeah. It's I've had moments where I've just honored the presence of the value of that moment. Sometimes I've had this strange, like I've been completely alone, just me myself, but I've suddenly had this thought that's giving me an insight that I literally felt it was like a gift. And I just literally, I don't know how to say it, but I bow to my moment in my inner realms. Not bow like as in submission. I'm saying honor. Honor means you see the value of the moment, and that's why love is the scribe's greatest backup. You know. So that's blessed, Lorna. I would say honor the presence of the world, and uh, your eyes will smile. Uh, okay. So, guys, I have an email. Let me see what email I should give you. There is an email. Like, if you look at the front page, there's this. Okay, okay. Guys, you gotta wait. Here, I'll give you this. So, guys, I'm trying to, like, 5 people from these talks have kind of joined so far, but I'm trying to create, like, this network, this community, this digital community. And I decided to do it on Patreon, but I've given two kinds of doors. So if people are interested in the Patreon, it's literally, I mean, it's been like a I don't know, maybe a couple of days. I can't find my phone. But like um, the Patreon section, I share content there, content personal to what I do, and also like I think so far there's 135 unique like lectures like some of them are from MIT or whatever, that I've kind of, the links of them I've kind of posted in that community. If people are interested, they can join. But yeah, guys, you can just send a message. Send a message to that email, and so that's that question. Let's go to the next one. Let's climb this mountain of wonder. Guys, you can also write me emails, or you can send me letters through Messenger Pigeon. You know, that's a way I, this is the Q&A, so I'm a bit loose. That's the best. I miss those days, where a pigeon would bring you a note, and you're like, wow, nobody shot this pigeon. Lorna says, okay, blessings. So Lorna says, why would anyone stay and be a ghost? Okay, so now your question is theosophical. That's the word for it, Lorna. So when you say, why are there ghosts or whatever they are, so human beings, you got to think about it. It's like some intense things have happened on this planet. One of those intensities is like literally in the 6th century, human beings, they looked at themselves and they're like, yo, I'm a person. And then they looked at the cosmos and they're like, yo, could the cosmos be a person? So it was a personification attempt. Here's the thing, okay? Theosophy was eventually the study of the invisible other, okay? And a lot of these, like, esotericism that we see in modern society, I don't know, I don't have too much of a comment on it. I'm kind of like that guy who, whatever kind of metaphysics he learned from gardening or something, like from nature is my teacher. I don't know what other creatures people are kind of looking at or looking for, but this idea of something continuing beyond the physical sensory perception, first we got to acknowledge, like, I don't know how many people know this, but what you see in life is a frequency range of biological perception. So our senses, like, I can't smell what's cooking in the Andromeda galaxy right now. You know? Oh man, that's one of those statements, some people are going to be like, how? How can you bring the Andromeda galaxy into this? Here's the thing, okay? The study of the invisible other. So if people could see an invisible personality in the sky, they could also see, uh, you know, they could imagine an invisibility behind the veil. Okay, they had this veil thing going on. Like back in the day, people felt the truth of the world was curtained from their eyes, and in a mystical way, the eyes were that curtain. So it was, you had to see it with different eyes. So what I'm saying is, check this out. Human beings, the 8-year-old child takes a teddy bear and thinks that teddy bear is its best friend. It hugs it. It teddy bear falls on the ground. It picks it up. It's like, no, teddy bear, you don't fall. The child has imbued personality to the inanimate. Okay, now before theosophy, I would say it's interesting. It's interesting to wonder about how you are being a person before you wonder about invisible personalities beyond the veil of perception. That means nature will know what it knows. You don't have to teach a bird to fly. As it is in a sort of event oriented environment, the environment is the teacher. The environment is sculpting your how your inner realms appear to you. So I would say when it comes to theosophy and study of the invisible other, the issue is that we have this sort of mainstream mentality that because we think everything is matter, we have rendered free will an illusion. So we have made ourselves, on some level, I think if you look at militant atheism, it's a great social purpose, but it has limited, in some sense, the scientific speculation of the psychology being a higher dimensional phenomenon, right? So, and a higher dimensional phenomenon means if our language is made in the two dimensional, we can't speak about a three dimensional. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying right now, guys. I feel I'm at the edge of the language threshold. It's not important about what we can say anymore. It's like how far. Like, how far can we speak? How far can language take us? And only when I realized it's a technology and it wasn't me that I found an ability to use it. So trust reality, trust nature, but at the same time, don't ignore the objective. It's like the objective realms are your shield, and your mind is like the sword in your hand. You know, you need both of them. Okay, so some hilarious comments here. Um, guys, the best way to contact me unknown is through Patreon. If you go to Patreon, I've created a side door, which is like the lowest amount you can literally put, you know. And that side door, anybody who enters the Patreon, that's a community I'm welcoming, and I'm very spending. I'm spending my time there. Anybody has a question, wants me to help them with anything, the Patreon community is where I've kind of limited all my cyberspace activity. I mean, not all of it. I mean, these talks are part of it, but yeah. So Lorna says, "What?" Like Lil Jon. I'm saying they seem to be something, but they seem to be something different to different people. That's what I'm saying. So they're the individualism of the higher dimensions is kind of like all the images in your mind become an alphabet, and then you wonder what is speaking before you are. You know, what is moving thoughts before you. Honk says, "What's 6-7? I know 10-9 is come again, and 10-4 is loud and clear. Is 6-7?" It's like a Is it like a memory driven? Guys, this is the Q&A point. Anybody can ask a question. Uh, I don't know. I mean, the movie Casper was. I saw it as a kid, but when I realized people are giving a personality to the ghost, it doesn't make sense because your personhood is based on shape, and the whole idea of a ghost is something that's the opposite of the shaped. You know, or let me say it. Or I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say it's all like I'm saying. It things appear the way you look at them, but at the same time. Uh, the unknown is the unknown. I'm not rendering the unknown void. You can't really. Literally, the unknown renders the void void. Guys, this is actually cool. Can people write down where in the world they're listening from? I'm just telling you, be conscious of your inner realms and your outer realms, and trust the world, and your own mind becomes your teacher. As from the beginning of your moment, it has been the only thing that's been here. So, guys, I think the questions are complete. I think nobody has any question. Guys, I mean, acknowledging the presence of something is different than acknowledging the shape of it, you know? Okay, guys, we got people listening from Serbia, Iran, Portugal. Nice. Florida. Nice. Lorna says, what about different parallel universe? Is that we can't see because we don't have the right filters on our eyes or something maybe, but it seems like they can be true. It's imagine like your left eye is one parallel dimension and your right eye is parallel dimension. So to wonder if we can be aware of two parallel dimensions at once means you're looking at two sides of the coin at once. So with mirrors, with advanced technology, it would be possible. With mirrors, it would be possible to kind of, I think, find some way of being aware of parallel universes. But I don't know. I don't know how objectively that much. Internally, I could just say after some point the world moves and the experience of the world is the greatest teaching. That's it. Okay, we have people listening from California. Nice. California, I think I've been to LA, but I think I visited as a young kid. I mean, guys, somebody was talking about reincarnation. I was kind of thinking, could nations have karma? Could nations have could space reincarnate? Very strange question. But it's like do you know like s- space moves in science? It's fascinating. There's a curvature. And there's even a black hole. I mean, literally, when there's a black hole in your universe, you're like, yeah, there isn't much I can, there isn't much truth we can find here. There's literally a black hole in space. Like, what are you gonna do with that? You know, guys, all the people who are in California, you guys should start like what I call um, these elemental units. You should start like in one talk I was saying School of Athens 2.0 is like this global initiative. So I don't know, start creating your own School of Athens. All those people in California find each other or something. I don't know. I let the my inner realms not to move first. I don't try to have an opinion. I watch, and as I watch, if you watch closely, there patterns evoke. D. Michael says, "Do you know the way to San Jose?" Is that a song? I don't know. I mean, ideologically, we're reincarnating every morning we wake up. No. So, anyways, guys, I think just realize that it's most people are born and they don't realize the value of their own eyes. You have to realize you have a unique DNA. That means you're like a unique instrument that nobody really can play. Only you can see what you see to some degree your inner realms. You know. If I don't, for example, vocalize my inner realms, then I can't, like, none of these talks would exist, for example. You know? So it's like we are simultaneously living an inner life and an outer life. The inner life, I feel it's like an instantaneity where attention is being the whole world, but the outer life, attention is being in the world. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in, and keep writing. And you might be like Mr. Within, I don't write. And in that case, I'm talking to your future self. You know, keep writing. You know, journal the mind. You have one lifetime to actually see what it is. Much blessings and all.